You're listening to the Jackalopes of Fire. My name's Chuck, and this is why I am boycotting Marvel Comics. Recently, Marvel Comics made the controversial decision to reveal that one of its most iconic characters, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, is an agent of the villainous organization known as Hydra, and evidently he always has been. Now, I've been reading comics for the majority of my 39 years on this planet, and even when not actively reading, I have attempted to keep up with the current happenings, and if something caught my eye, I'd check it out. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand I'm not some outsider or someone that has no real understanding of the industry. I'm a genuine fan of the medium, and as a fan, I get that there are times when companies will do something to shake things up, usually to refresh and revitalize a character, a book, or sometimes the entire company. Sometimes these moves work out, sometimes they don't. I'm also fully aware that these changes are often intentionally controversial. The creators and publishers want us to talk about it, and as they say, there's no such thing as bad press. However, this time is different. Steve Rogers, perhaps more than any other character, is representative of the ideal of American sensibilities. He stands for what's right, not necessarily what's easy. He stands up to bullies. He defends the innocent and the little guy. He was dreamt up during a time of worldwide strife when the bullies of the world were doing what bullies have always done and will always do. In early 1941, America was not yet involved in the global conflict that is now known as World War II. America's leadership had taken a stance of isolationism and were trying to stay away from the conflict. Not everyone agreed with this position, however. Two men in particular decided to use their chosen profession as a platform for standing up and saying what so many in the country were thinking, that what was happening in Europe was wrong, and we had an obligation to get involved. These two men were cartoonists Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. Both men were of Jewish descent and had understandably strong viewpoints on the terror that was being waged against an entire continent. The Nazi regime was systematically rounding up and exterminating millions of Jews, homosexuals, persons of color, and physically or mentally challenged individuals. Basically, anyone who didn't fit into the ideal image of the perfect German. Kirby and Simon understood on a very personal level that this was evil, and that such evil should not be allowed to continue unchallenged. So they created a character that would stand up to this evil and say no more. This ends here. In a move that could have been disastrous for their careers and even dangerous for their personal well-being, they created a character that would stand up to the tyranny and literally punch it in the face, as seen on the cover of Captain America #1, dated March 1941. This would, of course, turn out to be somewhat prophetic, as regardless of our nation's intentions at the time, we would be pulled into the conflict later that same year after the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor. Throughout the war, and indeed after, Steve Rogers continued to be a symbol of America, fighting the good fight and standing up to the bullies of the world. In the fictional realm of the Marvel Comics universe, the terrorist organization, known as Hydra, has its roots in Nazi Germany, and has continued in that same spirit throughout the decades. For example, the phrase Hail Hydra is and always has been analogous to the Nazis' Heil Hitler. Steve Rogers was created by two Jewish men to stand up to the Nazis, and that extends to all organizations with ties to the Nazi Party, including Hydra. To reveal that after 75 years of holding that line, that Steve is a sleeper agent, working for the very organization he's fought to tear down time and again, is not just out of character, it's disrespectful to the memory of his creators and the millions of people who died at the hands of what many consider to be the single most evil individual in human history. And let's be clear, It doesn't matter where the storyline goes from here. Is he faking it? Is he a triple agent? Is he a Skrull and the real Steve Rogers is still 90 years old and on some spaceship somewhere out in the cosmos? Is this a retcon of the Hydra we all know and hate, and will no longer be tied to their Nazi past? The answer is it doesn't matter, and it never will. Having Steve Rogers as Captain America utter the words "Hail Hydra" to close out the premiere issue of his new book is an insult to everyone that has ever been a little different. It's an insult to his Jewish creators, the Jewish community as a whole, the African American community, the LGBT community, and honestly to anyone that has ever picked up a comic book to escape their lives, even if just for a few blissful minutes every New Comic Wednesday. Because we are all a little different. Most of us would not have been accepted by the Nazis. We would have been eradicated for our uniqueness. And Captain America is a banner that can be waved and stood behind as a defender of those who are different and cannot defend themselves. Or at least he was. Until this past Wednesday, when Steve Rogers as Captain America threw one of his partners out of an aircraft, seemingly to his death, and said those words, "Hail Hydra." In discussing this topic with friends and mulling over my opinion on the matter, I found that I couldn't form an honest opinion on the story, or its controversial ending, without having read the issue for myself. So I did. I obtained a copy, read it through, and then put it down. I have never been so angry with a single phrase in any comic book. Even what I consider to be the lunacy over at DC the last few years doesn't compare to this. And what makes it worse is the rather flippant attitude the writer and editor have taken, essentially saying that people are overreacting and need to let it play out. I've also seen it said that most of the outrage is coming from people that don't know the industry and aren't used to these occasional shakeups. I'm here to say they're wrong. This is not an overreaction. And this is not just from folks outside the industry or fandoms. This is me, a longtime fan of the character and comics in general, and I'm saying this is not okay. This is offensive on many levels. But does Marvel hear me? And my opinions on their product? Do they care? I don't know. What I do know is that they are ruled by the same thing every for-profit organization is ruled by, the almighty dollar. They produce a product, and consumers consume it. So, that being said, as a consumer, my best weapon to speak out against this affront is to stop consuming the product. And it's not enough to not buy this one book. I believe that the only way to actually get the point across is to stop buying all Marvel-related products. This means comics, merchandise, movies, television programming, everything. From this moment forward, I will not spend a single penny on anything tied to Marvel properties. I will not purchase a movie ticket to X-Men Apocalypse. I will not purchase a Marvel comic book. I will not watch a single episode of the most recent season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I'm behind half a season. You get the idea. And I'll be standing by this decision, not just until the storyline has run its course, but until a formal and sincere apology is issued from the publisher, the editor, and the current writer who orchestrated these events. Now, I know that my personal boycott of the Marvel brand will have no effect on the company and its bottom line. I also know that if every single person who is equally offended by this stunt takes the same stance and boycotts the Marvel brand as a whole, the message will be loud and clear and unable to be ignored. So I invite you all to do that very thing. Don't give your money to a company that would greenlight this concept. Stop buying their books, their shirts, and their toys. Stop watching their TV shows. Stop going to their movies. Show them that this is not okay and that you will not reward them for making such a monumentally foolish and offensive decision. If you keep paying them, they don't know that you're unhappy. They think that the only people complaining are the ones that already don't buy their product. If you keep giving them money, you don't have room to complain. If, on the other hand, you don't agree with my point of view and are not offended by this storyline, then that's okay. More power to you. You're entitled to your opinions, and I respect that. Keep giving them your money and we'll see how it all turns out down the road. That's my 2 cents worth. If you've enjoyed this post, I invite you to comment, like, and subscribe to the channel down below. Much love and respect to you all.